Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of the Casual Boys podcast. Thank you so much for being here with us. I'm Brandon, and I'm here with a very good friend of mine,
I'm Francisco. I'm your co-host.
and we are starting again a podcast. We can add that to your other list of podcasts you have to get to eventually, but Francisco and I thought this would be a really, really fun and cool experience. We both are very avid podcast listeners, and we thought, might as well add our name to the mix of everything.
Yeah, I think we have too many inside jokes. We need more people to share them with.
Yeah, we we're very funny. I have no problem saying that. I think you and I are very funny, and we have just so much that it's criminal not to have other people listen to part of this. So this is our first step into getting that in order.
That's true. I think we spend enough times looking at memes that
We spend a lot of times on memes.
that if we don't start talking to other people, that we're just gonna explode.
Well, not to go on a tangent, but we used to have a meme page.
We did, and it was awful, and like 10 people liked it.
We had an okay following.
Mm. When you know your main followers by name, it's probably not a good
Okay, that's
following.
that's fair. So I guess a little background on both of us. I don't want to be the only one taking up airtime. Francisco, do you want to give a little bit of background to you and what inspired you to want to do this? Because really, this was Francisco's idea. We've talked about doing this, but he was the one who took the initiative forward to getting this podcast.
Yeah, so I think maybe 5 years, no, not five, like maybe 3 years ago, we wanted to do something like this, but there was just a lot going on. Like, we're busy with school and stuff. I'm still busy with school, but now I'm studying film, so I think that lends itself to wanting to do more creative things. And a podcast, I think, is one of the I guess, lower. You don't need as much. You don't need as much overhead to do a podcast. You don't need a ton of people. You don't need a crazy location. You just need two mics and a recorder. So I think it'd be really cool to see what we can get out of this.
And just quick side note, Francisco and I have known each other since 2013.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
2013.
yeah, 2013. We met at the University of St. Thomas, where we both went to school,
Mhm.
and we've been friends since. We were even roommates at a point.
Yeah, and Brandon did all the cleaning, and I did all of the making a mess.
And so, yeah, segue into me. I'm basically have been Francisco's sidekick for all those years. He's been a great friend. He's been a great confidant. He's my godfather as well. So, if we'll maybe someday clarify what that means. But
Boy.
we both graduated from the University of St. Thomas. When I was there, I studied communications, primarily focused on media production, and I minored in theater. And I've also been thinking about the whole podcast idea, as I'm sure many of you out there have thought about doing a podcast as well, because everybody has got the podcast bug. But we've specifically both Francisco and I have been very I I don't want to say enamored, but I guess fascinated by the way that how podcast has been this. I don't want to say like a safe space, but it's been like a chance for people to air out their thoughts and their opinions in a way where you go and you really really you get a chance to kind of know about the inner workings of a person, because that's where they have all this space and airtime to just speak out loud what they're thinking, or if they want to have a long form discussion about a certain topic. And we just both have been very interested in seeing what that'd be like to try. So once again, we're taking that first step, and you're the ones who get to join us on this quest.
Yeah, hopefully giving ourselves this much time to talk isn't a bad idea. So, our first topic for the day, we'd like to get into what are our most influential video games. So, Brandon, if you'd like to start.
Sure. I would have to say that my most influential video game was not to. I guess
Spoiler warning, I think we have the same one.
yeah. Well, do we? I don't know if we do, but maybe. So mine is Halo.
We have the same one.
Yeah, we have this. That's what I thought. And just to clarify, Halo was not my first video game. I had played other video games before then. I had a Nintendo 64, I had a Game Boy and Game Boy Advance. Okay, let me be specific. Game Boy. What was the name of the one that you could flip open? What's it? The SP?
SP?
Yeah, that
Yep.
was the only one I had. But I love that thing. It still works too. And so I've always been, into the whole gaming thing. But Halo was, I guess, my first experience where I had a whole new level of gaming and the experience of what it was to do first person shooter. And so just the world building and getting a chance to take on the role as the Master Chief. And I started playing Halo when I was in middle school, specifically sixth grade. I would always go to my friend's house, and I remember when he said, "Hey, let's play Halo." I didn't want to play Halo because it was rated M, and I thought I wasn't allowed to play it. Like there was some sort of like authority figure who was in there like, "Oh, they're playing Halo. We got them, ladies and gentlemen." But since then, I've been the biggest Halo fan to an annoying point. I know way too much lore about Halo than I probably
Mm.
should.
Yeah, I think I definitely took a huge break after Halo 3. So that was probably like a good 10 years or so that
Yeah,
I didn't play any Halo.
yeah.
But it was definitely the first. It was the first game that I played that I had difficulty with and actually kept trying.
Yeah.
Because, you start off with Super Mario World and like platformers like that and Donkey Kong. And for me, when I was a kid, if it was too hard and like I was the only person in my house that was playing video games, so if it was too hard,
Hmm.
I had nobody to like tell me how to do it.
Yeah,
So I just
you couldn't
wasn't
say
gonna
your
do
dad, "Hey, I need
it.
help with this."
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, my dad he'd just play like a puzzle game over and over again. But me, I'd be like, no, I need to finish this level. But Halo, so I got it because one of my friends recommended it to me, and we like would talk about like the game itself and Red versus Blue and all this stuff. But I had never played it. Then as soon as I got the chance to play it, I have in a place of honor in my room. I have my Halo Edition Xbox, original Xbox, for the world to see. And I bought it very happily with, I think it was some money that I won like for in a spelling bee.
Oh right, you
Um,
did. Yeah, I
so
remember that
that was the
story.
first big purchase I ever made was my Halo Edition Xbox. And I want to say I didn't even beat the first level, and then I gave up, which is really bad because it was like I don't know, like $300 or something,
Yeah, yeah.
which was way more back then. Um, and then maybe like a month later, I had some cousins visit um, from South Texas, and they had played it before and they had beat it. So I was like, "Oh, show me how to play it, please." So then they played it, and I was like, I was pretty much watching them
Hmm.
play, because I think I only had the one controller
Right.
at the time, so we could only play one at a time.
I've
But
been
then
there
they were
before.
showing
I
me,
totally understand. Yeah.
yeah, they were like, "Oh, you see when you reach here and then you always turn around. Well, actually, you're supposed to crouch underneath this door that's half open." Because one thing about Halo, which okay, I was a weird kid, but uh, whenever the music came up in the main menu, it like haunted me.
Yeah,
It was like,
yeah.
oh, and I just couldn't, I couldn't listen to it. So I was like, nope, I'm playing this at night. I just muted it, and then I would leave it muted for the whole
Right.
game just in case it was scary. And so like
I think
whenever,
I definitely understand that. The first time I heard that music, I thought that this is not even like a game. Like this is something important you played. Just because like like the music, it's so
Yeah.
like reverent, and you just hear it, and you're just like, you feel really small when you play.
Like, why? It's rated M.
Yeah,
It's got this music. Like, is this
exactly.
for me? But yeah, after I figured out a couple tricks, and I learned about that you can very readily get ammo for guns, not just walk
Oh
around with the
right.
pistol with no ammo in it. Um, I I soon became very addicted to the game. Once again, up until the flood mission, which again scared me so much that I muted it again, and that I stopped playing for a long time because I was too scared.
For those of you who don't know the Halo games, the Flood are this parasitic life form that you encounter in the first game about halfway through, and it to many gamers whose first experience was Halo, it's a very traumatizing moment in their gaming lives because you're basically by yourself in an environment you don't know. The enemies have changed, and you're fighting for survival.
Yeah, and all you have is some found footage of the only people
Yeah,
in the whole world that you know getting viciously slaughtered by some weird new aliens you've never seen.
yeah. I was terrified by that moment too.
Mm.
I guess just quick tidbit. The reason that Halo is a little bit of an inside joke for Francisco and I is because one time I was visiting his apartment and he was playing it, and I believe you were on Legendary,
Yeah,
and you asked a bunch of us because it wasn't just you and I. There were some other people there to try it out, and we all tried. And I decided to try it out as well, and I was actually doing pretty good. And everyone was like, "Oh, I didn't know Brandon knew how to play
yeah.
Halo."
No, I was completely shocked. I never associated you with video games at all.
And so since then, it launched this, I guess, this mission that you want to undertake into playing all the Halo games on Legendary.
Mm.
And so the summer of 2018, you and I embarked on that.
We did.
And every Monday we would get together and we would play Halo. And goodness gracious, that was one of I don't know what it says about me as a person, but one of my top achievements I've done in my life, going through all the games on Legendary
In a row.
in a row. Yes,
And I think that probably would have made a more interesting podcast, but
going through all
we
the
didn't
games
think
on
of it at the
Legendary.
time. No, that was before we. This wasn't even a gleam in the corner of our eye having this podcast. So now we do. Maybe we'll try it again. I think actually the playing. So the first time that I tried Legendary, um, was on Halo 2. I never
Mm-hmm.
the entire time I had Halo 1, I just assumed it was too hard, so I never played it. But then I tried on Halo 2, which is probably the easily the most difficult legendary, and I just kept dying so much without progressing at all that I just never played legendary again, which is I think the basically the crux of my Halo career
Yeah.
is it just being too hard and then me giving up immediately.
And so ever since then, it's been Halo has been just I guess a new stepping stone in our relationship. Like we always can come back to it, and we know that this game has it's not even just a game. It's been a huge experience for us. Definitely when Halo Infinite is coming out, you and I are going to once again go back into the world of Master Chief.
Day one,
Yes,
no doubt.
yes,
I'm gonna take
exactly.
off work. I'm gonna skip school. It's gonna happen.
You know, when I had my own Halo games, I didn't even have it for console. I played it on PC.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Halo Combat Evolved and Halo 2, both of them on PC.
Hmm.
Because I couldn't afford an Xbox,
Mhm.
so I did that. And I don't think that those original servers were up, but the multiplayer on those things were just phenomenal.
Mhm.
There's so much trash talking, but also like so many great people that you could interact with and play with, and it was amazing. It was just an amazing thing to experience.
So that was one thing that I never I guess lived through
Mm.
experienced was like a live
Oh
Xbox
right,
Live Halo,
right, yeah.
because again it was one of those things where like I was raised too well,
Hmm.
I'll say that, and so I was too afraid of what weird people would be online
Yeah.
that I never even entertained the idea. I was like, oh hey stranger, which sometimes I guess I regret, but other times like I don't know. Whenever Apex Legends came out,
Hmm.
I think maybe last year, um, I was like so hype, and like a bunch of my friends were playing, and then as soon as our schedules changed and we could no longer like play every day with each other, I just stopped entirely
Oh yeah,
because
yeah.
those because you have to play with a minimum of 3 people. I think they changed that now,
Hmm.
but when it first came out, you had to play with a minimum of 3 people. And I'm like, no, I'm not
Yeah,
gonna,
yeah,
I'm not gonna be able to just hang out with a bunch of people and just routinely disappoint
yeah.
all these
And that's
people
because
that I'll
it's
never meet.
it's in the battle royale genre, so you have to have a minimum of people to play.
Yeah, and no, thank you. Maybe there's Halo Battle Royale. I'll try that now, but uh, so our next topic is what is your most influential movie, and it can be more than one because I know I'll probably end up talking about more than one.
Do you want to go ahead and take this one first, since I took the other one?
Sure. So I think it's kind of random, but I think my most influential movie might actually be um, I'm gonna pick two. So
Okay.
I'll pick one from my childhood, which is before I was born, but still I'll count it from my childhood. Is Back to the Future. So
Mm.
Back to the Future, I know that like there's like some kind of cheesiness when it comes to time travel movies, because it's kind of like, oh well, everything kind of just ends up in like a little nice pretty bow at the end. But for me, it was just something I'd never seen before, and like I think up until then, the coolest movie I'd ever seen was Jurassic Park. But we didn't have a VHS copy of Jurassic Park, so I couldn't watch that nonstop like I did Back to the Future. And actually, it was the same cousins from South Texas that came up, and we watched it with them because there was a scene at the very beginning of the movie where the main character Marty McFly, he knows how to play guitar, and so he goes to his friend who's like a crazy scientist. He goes to his friend's house, Doc Brown, and he plugs into the amp, and like it's this huge amp like the size of a whole wall, and then he turns everything up, all of the dials, like 20 dials up to 11 or 10 or whatever it goes to, and then he does one strum and it explodes and the thing shoots him across the room, and like that was so funny. It was so funny that we just kept repeating that, and like we didn't even watch the movie that first night, like we just kept watching that clip over and over again. um
Is that the inspiration for that one Simpsons scene when Bart has all those like the mega
Oh,
horns?
the testing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know.
and he blows up. He does like a shockwave throughout Springfield.
That might be. Um, but that was, I don't know. The Simpsons are a different. If we had done TV shows.
Yeah. Don't worry. Someday
Yeah.
we're gonna have a
Someday
whole
we'll.
episode
Yeah.
dedicated to The Simpsons,
Oh
because you and
yeah.
I are also huge Simpsons fans.
Yes, very much so. Um, yeah, I think Back to the Future with, the whole. It's like a linear plot, but because of the time travel, there's like some non-linear aspects. It was just a type of movie that I needed to try to understand because there were some things that as a little kid like just didn't come natural.
Right.
So I think it was really important for me to see that and to like see this like what you can do with like outside of the box thinking like time travel, and just all the good things that can come out of that. And my more modern movie that I watched when I was in high school, Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Hey.
So I love Edgar Wright. He's probably my favorite director. Um, of any other director, I think I've seen the most of his movies, and I think I think that movie. I don't think it's his best movie. Like I like his Simon Pegg movies better. Um, but something about Scott Pilgrim where it was like cheesy but still funny, and it was like cheesy to the point where it was like almost threatening you to laugh.
Right.
If that makes sense,
Yeah.
like it was like I'm gonna keep being this cheesy.
Yeah.
If you don't start laughing, just stop watching the movie. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna start laughing.
It
Um,
was like Stockholm syndrome.
yeah, basically, I was very much, kidnapped. I was tied up in the movie theater. My
Oh, you saw it in
face.
theaters.
Yeah, I watched it with my
Okay.
sister. My face like gagged and stuff, and I was just laughing and crying my eyes out. Um, and I think with the way that just everything in that movie seemed to be so on purpose, like all of the video game tie-ins, and all of the whenever the scene would transition to a new scene, and it would be like one continuous shot, but it
Hmm.
was like a completely different area. All these things that I never kind of with Back to the Future, what Back to the Future did with nonlinear storytelling, Scott Pilgrim versus the World did with like editing. And now that I'm studying film, like a lot of things are clicking because editing is becoming more and more um, like I'm seeing, I guess I'm kind of seeing behind the curtain on
Hmm.
a lot of stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is probably how they did that, or they like did these lighting tricks or whatever.
Hmm.
So yeah, Scott Pilgrim was definitely one of the first films that really made me think about the craft of movie making and how interesting that could be.
Can I ask, now that you are in school for that and you watch um, TV and film, and also because I think you're one of the top people who I know who consumes so much.
Yes.
In that, do you find yourself sometimes taken out of the immersion because you're like, oh, I wonder if they're doing this, or they probably did a different lighting technique for this.
Sometimes, but usually no.
Hmm.
Usually, so like when I watch a good movie, like Parasite, and I'm
Shouts out
just
to
super
Parasite.
shout out to Parasite. I'm just super like invested in Parasite. But then I'll watch it again and then I'll try to figure it out.
Hmm.
Because one of those movies that it's got all these like clues and foreshadowing
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that you miss if you're just like going in, just like seeing reacting to everything.
Hmm.
But for the most part, I just kind of realize how awful my taste in movies is, which is
Why
probably
would you say
bad.
that?
But because it's just like I think so. The movie I didn't talk about because I don't think it's influential, but it is definitely my favorite movie is Rush Hour 2. And that movie is probably by all accounts probably really offensive. Like the humor is probably really offensive and like probably pretty racist and like all this stuff that you could say about it. But it's definitely my favorite movie. And I don't know what that says about me or what that says about like my future potential as a filmmaker or my eye for film. But I think that that's one of the things where that goes to show that I can watch a movie like that and just appreciate like what they did with
Hmm.
that. So like all the improv that Chris Tucker definitely did, the chemistry he has with Jackie Chan, all the stunts that Jackie Chan did, all these things that if you, I guess, didn't grow up with something, or if you didn't allow yourself to become, I guess, if you didn't allow yourself to be dumb for a second,
Right,
you would
right,
never
right.
appreciate.
Yeah.
So I
A
think,
suspension of disbelief kind of
yeah.
thing.
So a lot of times my suspension of disbelief will come with the things I enjoy the most. So like if I really enjoy something, I don't care if it's stupid.
Hmm.
So I don't think I'll ever be like, oh yeah, Citizen Kane, or oh yeah, 2001: A Space Odyssey. Because 2001: A Space Odyssey, sure, it's like perfect. It's like a perfect movie or whatever. But it's like the most boring thing ever.
Hmm.
And I can't just like something because I know it's good.
Right,
You know,
right.
it's like if
Like if you
you're,
don't enjoy it personally, then like, what does it say about the movie?
yeah, like it's not for me, and it's like you're being set up on like a
Yeah,
blind date, and
yeah,
like
yeah.
just because this person's like perfect for you, whatever, that doesn't mean that you have to buy into that.
Right. That's a good one. Now I've never thought about it that way
Yeah,
before.
you can have that one.
I've seen like 20 minutes of Citizen Kane, and like it wasn't until my professor told me like, all right, this is what the movie's about. I'm like, I still don't think I understand this movie.
Yeah, I don't. I've never seen it, but I have seen 2001.
Hmm.
In 2001, it's just like 30 minutes of monkeys like doing nothing, and then like 2 hours of, or like an hour of a robot trying to kill a bunch of astronauts, and then like an hour of a guy trying not to get killed by the robot,
Right.
but then also he like evolves and dies or
The
something.
robot or the
The
guy?
guy,
Okay, the
he
guy.
like evolves into like some kind of space baby.
What?
Yeah, no, that's
As you can
exact.
clearly see, I've never seen this movie,
Yeah,
so
and I honestly, I don't think. I think if someone that you really like wants you to watch that movie, then you should watch it. But if you should never go out of your way to watch it by yourself,
mm.
because either you will fall asleep or you'll just be on your phone the whole time. So, what about you, Brennan? What's your most influential movie or movies?
This was a hard one because I have so many movies that hold dear to my heart, but I also didn't want to give any, not to downplay people's choices, but I also don't want to play like any of the typical ones. I didn't want to say anything that like I love the movies like Jurassic Park. But if I said Jurassic Park, I feel like people would be like, okay, he's another Jurassic Park fanboy, another like Spielberg person,
Yeah.
and I love Jurassic Park as well. It's one of my
Are you saying
favorites.
people aren't calling me a Rush Hour 2 fanboy and a Brett Ratner fanboy?
No, but I feel like our listeners would probably be our friends, so they probably already know this information.
They better know. If not,
Yeah,
they do
cause
now.
like originally I was gonna say Star Wars, but everybody knows I love Star Wars.
Uh,
And then I was gonna say, okay, maybe we'll just say Lord of the Rings. I'm like, who? If you know me, I like Star Wars, and obviously I already know, you probably know that I like Lord of the Rings as well.
yeah.
So I decided to
And you
go
like
off.
toy trains, and you like comic books, and
Yeah, I'm every typical pop culture
you
geek and
like
nerd.
painting little figurines in your basement. Yeah.
If I had a basement, but
I think I would be. I think a basement would be too dangerous in my
yeah,
hands.
yeah,
Like I would just turn it into like
your ultimate
a
man cave.
ultimate dungeon
Yeah.
of just being really nerdy and like Halo and K-pop stuff, which is my room right now. But at least I have a window in my room,
Yeah,
so sometimes
and you have
some
no
good.
door on your room as well.
Yeah, so I have no door because the door won't open with my bed in the place where it is. So I just took my door off completely. But yeah, continue.
So the movie I decided to go on was the Digimon movie, the one that premiered, and it's a bit of a random choice, but the reason I'm picking this one
The
is
Digimon movie.
yes, yeah, because I don't this stuck so deeply with me because I don't know if you remember from our childhood. There was that time when like uh I guess for us and during that time cartoon shows were going to start making movies and
Mhm.
then they were actually going to premiere them in theaters.
Mm.
And so I remember when I saw when Pokemon had the movie with Mewtwo for the very
Mhm.
first time, and that just blew my mind. It was also incredibly deep and emotional towards the last 40 minutes, and it was my first time feeling that in a movie theater, and I was a little bit scared by those emotions because I was like, what's gonna happen? I don't know what's gonna be going on.
Yeah.
And
I've never felt this way.
exactly. Like I always go to a movie just to like see the colors and laugh. That was my
Mm.
first time seeing this and having all these people I have on a regular daily basis seeing, because I would always catch Pokemon every day, and seeing all these significant events happening. It was life changing. Not
Mhm.
to I guess be over dramatic, but it really was. But the reason I chose the Digimon movies because
Yeah, I was like, you're talking a lot about
yeah,
Pokemon. Why
yeah,
did you pick that one?
is that it's just the art style for Digimon was so different than the way they portrayed it in the shows,
Mm.
and we could say that the studio did different animators and different artists to do that, and it was just so just just awe inspiring, just seeing the way that all these characters I know how they look like being portrayed in a different style, but it's still the same character.
Mhm.
And then the soundtrack is also something that's still very influential in my life. It had all of these great like alternative rock and roll genres going on in there, and it just really like boosted me up, and I get the biggest nostalgia bomb whenever I hear any of those songs. And it was just one of those great battles of good and evil that you see happening. And you know, nowadays I don't know how cartoons are for kids. Like, is it still like you root for the good guy for good and evil? But here, like, you have the good guys being put at the ultimate end of the struggle, and they rise up in such a freaking amazing fashion, and they just beat the bad guy. It's just amazing.
Mm.
But it was also a great story about heart and trust and growing up, and you know, I think that was something that just stuck with me for all this time.
Yeah, I think I could never. So I definitely got into uh, Digimon, but I don't know. I just forgot they existed for a long time. I honestly think it was around the time I started playing Halo or like getting
Hmm.
into video games, because I just like I remember like if I watched like the first season of Digimon, like I still remember the song.
Right.
I still remember.
And
I'm
the
sure
digital
I would
monsters.
remember a lot
Yeah.
of what happened, but I would have forgotten that I ever saw it before. So I think, yeah, I think that's just it's a very niche, of extremely niche thing to pick is the Digimon movie.
Yeah. Not a lot of people know that about me. That I was a huge Digimon fan.
Mm.
So I was like, you know, this is gonna be a nice surprise for our pilot, just to introduce
Yeah,
people into this.
Brandon Park, Digimon Digital Master. So one thing I wanted to ask, so you said that the animation was so different than the show.
Hmm.
Does that do you enjoy when that happens, or does it kind of bother you when the animation is like, even if it's just like the quality is way better?
I guess because I was so young, I didn't even think about that.
Mm.
Looking back at it now, I think it was probably a really ballsy move that they did. They probably didn't have to face so much repercussion just because, like, when they were introducing it to American audiences, they knew that they were going to catch on to that. Because, you know, there were still people who watched Japanese anime and cartoons here in the States, but definitely not to the way it is how we are here in 2020.
Mhm.
You know, it was very definitely like if you people back then lumped it together with just like your average cartoon, which you know you're not really supposed to do. But you know, now that I look back onto it, I think that was just a great move that they did, just
Mm.
because you know it gave them room to explore a different outlet. And I think that if they had done it, if you know Digimon was premiering now and today, and they do it now, I don't think it would have gotten as much credit. But I liked it a lot. You know, it was
Mm.
just it felt like a movie when I was watching it, not just like another episode of a TV show.
Yeah. I don't. I don't know if I like that though.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'd prefer. I think just stick to one.
Mm-hmm.
So the example I'll pick is the Simpsons movie.
Oh,
Even though
okay.
we're not talking about the Simpsons right now, but
Yeah,
we're talking about movies.
yeah.
So I'm
I
gonna.
think it's specific because it's also an animated TV show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it like came from the TV show, and the TV show had the style that changed over the first 20 years or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but it was still like extremely recognizable as Simpsons, and still like all the characters were very flat and like flat to the background and stuff. And then you had the movie that had clear CGI elements. It had um, like a ton of like shadowing and
Mm-hmm.
shading effects
A
that
lot
like
of detail.
yeah made the characters look more 3D than before, while still looking like 2D of
Yeah.
Simpsons characters. And I thought that's cool, but I feel like I don't know. I feel like it just seems like they're taking you're like taking it almost feels like why don't you do this every time?
Right.
And
Right.
yes, I
Right. Right.
understand that like it takes a year to animate those 20 minutes, and so they have like multiple teams working at once to make each season. I understand that, but something about that is just like, well, why can't everything like is there ever going to are we ever going to reach a point where everything looks as good as this?
Mm-hmm.
Cuz I'll watch like a different anime. Now we're just gonna talk about anime for a second.
Okay.
I'll watch like a different anime. It'll be like a 10 episode anime,
Yeah.
like very few animations and stuff. Like it'll just be like people in high school or whatever. It
Mm-hmm.
won't necessarily be like any fighting or anything.
Yeah.
And they won't have to move very much. Like for example, Bunny Girl Senpai, that anime, where it was just a bunch of people exploring their feelings, which is which is good and interesting, and something that relatable. But then I saw the movie, and the movie like it looked pretty much like a long version of the episode, right? And so it was like I almost like because I think I watched the movie like 6 months after the series like had finished, and so it was like I was back with the series. But then I watched a different movie recently. It was the movie Your Name,
Mm.
and that movie was like triple A, huge budget movie with like the best animators in the world and all this stuff. And it like it kind of was almost unfair,
Yeah,
right? It was
yeah,
just like,
yeah.
why? How can this look so good, but it's just a movie?
Right,
And I know that
right,
that's
right.
weird because I think we don't think about that over here because like we don't have that many non CGI cartoon movies anymore,
Mm.
so we
Mm.
don't really think about oh this movie is a millions of dollars went into this for this one instance. We're like, oh, this is just a continuation of a cartoon or whatever. This is for kids. So I think some of that mentality is still stuck with me, and so it really bothers me. Like why can't they all look this good?
Yeah. I guess the question I have to ask is that would you think like if they would all be that good or to that standard, would it lose its magic? Because then you would have to find another way to top that.
Yeah, another way to make it look like cinematic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. It's just like I don't know. I feel like with real people and like all these kinds of I feel like with most of the anime that I end up watching, there's very rarely do the shots change.
Mm.
So like very rarely does it change from like a normal like lens to like a telephoto lens
Right.
or
Yeah.
like a really wide angle lens. Like very rarely does that happen in anime. It happens all the time in live action.
Mm.
Happens all the time in movies especially. But like in a sitcom you have the one camera that's like 40 feet away, like zoomed
Yeah.
in all the way to like where you don't see like all the set prop like all the extraneous set stuff.
Mm.
So you're like, okay, this is a they have two cameras set up here, one looking this way and one looking this way. This is all the show is. But then, like in a movie, like they're changing lenses, they're changing, lighting and all this stuff. So it's like every movie we see, like, has that stuff that would take a ton of extra effort to replicate in animation. While in animation, a lot of it defaults to that same, sitcom style, where it's just the same, kind of shot
Right.
throughout, regardless, unless it's like a tense moment or a fight or something. So I think, like with your question of, would that ruin the magic? I think yes, but I think maybe it would kind of push them to look for something more, because like I think we started off more cinematic when it comes to live action stuff.
Mm.
I think the industry was more cinematic when we began, because you had this one movie, like each theater showed one movie at a time, and then like 3 months later, a new movie came out and started showing that one. So it was like more of an event,
Mm.
and now it's like anyone can do it with any camera pretty much, and it loses its magic in that way. But also, there's some like $50,000 cameras with like $60,000 lenses that are like way out of the hands of anybody. So
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
those look amazing,
Yeah.
but those are still kind of the same cameras that they were using in the 70s.
Mm.
They're just
More toys attached to it.
yeah,
Yeah.
more toys, and they have better software now.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think that we maybe are only scratching the surface of what we can do with animation. Now I know that's might be offensive, but I think there's a lot more to be explored there. So that's those are the topics, our main topics we had today. Is there anything that you would like to close off with?
Yeah, just I hope everybody who's listening to this today um, continues with us throughout as we progress in this podcast. We're really excited to do this. I myself, isn't not to flex or anything, but I've done podcasts with a couple of people. I've had always great experiences doing that, and it's really something that I hope people try at least one time in their life to see what it's like doing the podcast because it is accessible to everyone. The challenge is continuing to do it and continuing to doing it well because how do you make yourself special in this market? And you and I are both big consumers of media, and so I think that's the big thing we really wanted to focus on this podcast is sharing that love that we have for this media with other people and explaining why we love it so much and what it means to us. And I hope everyone who got a chance to listen through this whole thing gets to grow in our appreciation for all that as well. So that's I think the big thing I want people to take away from this podcast and this first episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that no matter how much we consume in this medium, I think that it's totally different when we're here.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of different when we're here. There were times during this podcast where I'm like, we're not saying anything, and then there's times where it's like I'm talking way too much.
Yeah.
And other times where it's like, oh, we only have a couple minutes left for what we had planned, right? So I think that it's really cool to be able to do this. It's really cool to, um, have this. We're basically both growing in this, even though like you've done a lot more than I have. We're both growing. We're both learning
Yeah.
how to do this, how to
Especially
work together.
since it's our own project. Really.
Yeah. So how to work together, you and I, and like if anybody's listening, whatever they want us to hear, whatever opinions they have. If I am talking too much, we don't really have. I guess us. We're kind of working out the kinks here.
Mm.
So I know it transitioned from you talking more to me talking more towards the end, but we don't really have a set plan because we're like equal in this. So I think that if anyone is listening that has any advice or any feedback that you can give us, or maybe even topic suggestions, if you could give us those, and we will do our best to try to explore them in future episodes and try to make any changes we need to, because we are very malleable. We're like Play-Doh in that we don't have any. We're not divas in this. We're not experts at all. So if there's anything that we need to change or emphasize more, then we'll be all ears to what you have to tell us.
So with that being said, once again, I'm your co-host Brandon.
And I'm Francisco.
And you were listening to the Casual Boys podcast.
Arriva Dirt.
Tune in for the next episode, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. God bless.